All right, happy Friday. Thank you guys for coming down. And I actually have 2 certified relationship coaches with me today in the house. And actually, what we're going to be diving in today is going to be so good. You guys are really going to like it. So we're going to talk about everything breakups. So we're going to be talking about relationships, how to break up well when it comes to the conversation, the decision, all of that. And so actually, to start off, I'm Adrian, I have Albert here, and I'm Chloe. And actually, if you guys would introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about each one of you, that would be great.
Yeah, so my name's Adrian. I am actually with Think Twice, and we're collaborating with The Wear again, so it's super exciting. And a little bit about me, I'm married, I have 2 kids, I have a dog who I love. He was my first son, but I love my kids more.
Right.
Yeah, and I got a breakup story I want to share in this episode, and I'm excited to do that. So yeah, that's me.
All right, well, thank you for that. My name is Albert. So yeah, like you mentioned, it's the second time that we collaborate with Think Twice as well. So I'm excited to do this. And the topic I think fits pretty good, right? But I've been with The Wear for just over a year now as the coordinator. And I mean, I'm single, so I mean, I'm sure this is something I can learn from as well.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
No, we're all learning in this. And just a little bit about me is I actually am in my committed relationship with my lifelong partner, and we actually just got married a year ago. And so as I was educating, I actually was 19 years old and in a relationship as I was in schools working with high school students. And so a lot of this content is actually relevant to situations that are relatable and actually going on right now. So actually to start us off, I have a question for you, Adrian.
Okay.
So have you had any experiences with breakups, relationships, and romantic partners, and what were some of the decisions you had to make?
For sure. So I've definitely been through breakups. I'm in a current, I'm in a marriage right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I also coach young men on a weekly basis. And so they go through their things, and I get to help them navigate these kind of issues that come up. But one of the things is I wanted to share is when I was in 7th grade, I remember clearly because I dated this girl, and the first date was a movie theater. I had to meet her at the middle school, so yeah, we went to the middle school. I didn't drive, so I had to meet her there, so her sister could pick me up and then take us. The funny thing was when I got there, the car was full, so it was her sister, her friend, and then 3 other girls in the back. So I had to sit on someone's lap. Yeah, I had to sit on her lap.
Oh, wow.
And so the date was already kind of like, oh man, what am I doing? You know, and I was already kind of shy kid too. I was kind of shy. I was kind of like, I want to keep this, between us two.
Yeah.
And she went to the movie theater, and she went to the bathroom when she got there with 2 other friends, and then the other 2 stayed behind, and they were like, are you going to kiss her? Are you going to make the move? And I was kind of like, oh man, this is kind of weird, it's pure pressure right off the bat. And I felt really uncomfortable. And so then they made this plan. One of her friends sat right here where Alberta's sitting. She sat right here. And this friend, I think they had planned it. I guarantee they planned that. She kept she was like, are you gonna do it? I was like, what? I'm not gonna kiss her. And so there was a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up kissing her. I didn't enjoy the date at all. The next day there was a basketball game at the school, and so I sat with my brother and one of my friends, and I was telling him, bro, could you go tell her it's over? Tell her I'm done. We're gonna break up. And so I sent him to go tell her. I don't know what he told her that she got so mad that when we walked out of those gym doors, she was waiting outside the gym door, and then her friends were waiting by this tree in the back. And she was like, how could you be such a coward? Why didn't you tell me my face? And so just kind of a piece of advice, don't get a friend to tell them for a breakup. You got to do it yourself. You got to tell them the reason why, and it's important for you to speak up because you have a voice. Yeah.
Oh man, that's
high
pressure
situation,
situation.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I guess we're going to include peer pressure.
Yeah.
You had a mix of that.
Yeah.
Peer pressure, miscommunication when it came to actually making that decision. And so I liked your word of advice because you went through that experience and you learned something from it. And so I think that's something else with breakup is how do I not lose myself in the process when I'm actually going through a breakup? And what are some things that I can actually learn from this? So it's a positive experience, not a negative, and I can actually move on the right way. And so it's hard. It's really hard stuff, but it's something that actually you can see as a positive, and you can actually mature through that and grow through it. So
Absolutely.
that's an amazing experience. Wow.
Yeah.
Albert, do you have any?
Oh man, I mean, yes. I mean, I have those when I was younger. I remembered relation that I wouldn't consider relationships, right? Kind of like you mentioned, where I had a friend go and tell them, or send a note, I don't think this is gonna work out, right?
Yeah.
No, but I was also in a long committed relationship for a few years. I want to say around 6 years, probably. That did come to an end, right? And the hard thing with that was that, like you mentioned, not losing yourself in that process as well, right? So I remember for a while, I stopped thinking about myself in that process, and I kept thinking about them mostly, and I started forgetting the reasons why we got to that point of the breakup, right? And I know for some people it can be hard, even when you've been committed in a relationship for a long time, it can be hard to get out of that relationship, right?
Absolutely.
You might think like, oh, this is a lot of time that I spent from my life, I'm throwing away. It can seem that way. But I do remember that one being definitely being a hard relationship to break off. It started off over the phone, not the best way, once again, right? So I definitely messed up the communication there. But eventually it did end up, we had that conversation in person, and that cleared things up a lot more. And we were able to get some good closure, not just me, but she was also able to get that closure. So that communication in person definitely made a huge difference in that breakup.
Wow. Yeah. And can I ask if your relationship was long distance, like an LDR relationship?
It did not start off long distance. Later on, it did become long distance.
I see. Okay.
But then, when I look back at it as well, we use the same curriculums when we go to schools, right? I'm sure you guys have also used the pyramid and all of that, right? The positive foundations, and it always takes me back to that. And when we do go over that with students in class, that is one thing that I stress with them a lot as well, to look back on. But no, it did not start off as a long distance, but eventually it ended up being one.
I see. Yeah. And that distance can be such a barrier or confusion to communication sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And for those who don't know what the relationship pyramid, could you kind of explain that, like how that works when you're just starting off in a new relationship with someone?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So some of the things that, when it comes to breaking up, right, it's knowing the reasons why you broke up, right?
Yep.
And then that pyramid, so it's broken up into 3 different sections. You have your foundational stage, which is the bottom stage, right? The biggest part of the pyramid. Then you have your deepening, developing, and then you have your mature stage of that relationship, right? And the reason why I always go back to those foundation stage with students, especially like after experiencing a breakup, if you're able to come to terms with the reasons why you broke up, it can help you actually set yourself up for a better start later on in the future.
That's so good.
Right? So that's why I really do praise using that that activity with students in the classroom, because it can really help us to think about things that we don't often find ourselves thinking about.
Right. Exactly. And I think so often what can happen is that sliding into a relationship without deciding first. And so they're probably wondering, I'm wondering, so what are some signs that are indicators, hey, like maybe I need to reevaluate the relationship currently or reconsider? What are some signs that actually that they can pay attention to in a relationship?
Yeah. So I think because I love that foundational, like the positive starters, right?
Oh, yeah.
And getting on the same page, like simple things like, are you having fun?
Yes.
Fun is essential, right? Are you being respected, right? And what does respect look like for you? What are your top expectations? There was a study that showed that if you could meet your partner's top 3 expectations, you're more likely to be in a happy relationship.
Interesting.
Right? So your top 3. What are your top 3 expectations? Talk about those things beforehand. Yesterday I was actually teaching on this, the whole pyramid thing. And there was one student that we got to mature love, and he said something along the sides of limitations. And I was like, what does it sound about? Like, and then, so I asked him, like, go ahead and explain. And he said, well, if they start acting funny or they're not doing what you already told them to do, so you have to put limits on them. And I'm like, okay, I get where you come from. No, actually, that starts with boundaries.
Yes.
Right? You have to you have to talk about boundaries. and then your boundaries will get you a kind of an idea of what respect looks like in that relationship. And that way, then you don't have to talk about it when you're in mature love, because you already know kind of how the relationship works from the bottom to the top. You don't have to get to the top and be like, oh, you can't do this anymore. I didn't know you were like that. Or I didn't know you were. And so some of those things to watch out for. It's really important for you to, more importantly, to talk about these things early on out the first 3 months. Just really get to know each other, date in group settings, date in individual settings, date in different kind of settings. It's even important to find out, like, how does this person get angry or hangry?
Oh, yeah.
Because, it'll tell you whether you're able to handle that kind of personality, because we all have different personalities. But I think more importantly, is those positive starters. You'll learn what to watch out for if you know who you are first, and then you kind of get to know the person as you date and move along safely.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, no, you hit a really good note there, because what we were educating, actually, I was just doing this video before yesterday with the Prosser High school students, and we actually were doing the relationship pyramid. And before we get to that pyramid, we actually have them think about the characteristics that's a part of a healthy relationship, that actually should be part of a relationship. And we always encourage the students, we say, okay, forget having a perfect partner. You actually need to become that person. You actually need to start working on yourself and developing those characteristics yourself. And I think you had a really good note there. So that's all relevant to the relationship topic and what we're experiencing and walking through. And so, is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Well, I really like how you hit on the part of respect, because that is the part that I do see pop up a lot, right? That students have those questions regarding respect, especially regarding those physical boundaries, right? Those are things that are not talked about early on, like you mentioned, but definitely picking up on those early signs of respect, not just in the physical way, but also thinking about the emotional and mental way as well, right? Your mental health as well. There can be things that can slide that we may not think can be a big thing. Like you mentioned, even the way they get angry, right? Are you able to fight fairly? Maybe your personalities aren't the same, but are you able to connect in those ways? And then even the respect of being yourself in that relationship is a big difference. And I think that's one thing, at least in my experience as well, that I noticed was I kind of lost myself a bit, and I started losing that self-respect for myself. And I kind of started forgetting who I was. And I think that's one of the things that happens quite often in relationships, definitely, is we can forget about ourselves and kind of, I don't know if I want to say dive too much into the relationship. It sounds kind of bad.
Yeah, like stop taking care of you.
Yes.
Because you're trying to nurture something that's probably in the hinges of dying, kind of a thing. Right?
Yeah, sometimes, it can be like that way too. But even just losing yourself along the way can change the way you are, the type of partner that you are in that relationship.
Even your identity.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, because that's something that I was actually processing through. It's like your identity sometimes gets to being labeled with whatever you're doing or performance or what you're being in that moment or a relationship. And so it seems like when your relationship's on that hinge of dying, like you said, like, then it seems like, oh, my identity, it's gone.
Yeah, because that was your identity.
That was your identity. Yeah. And so as we're talking about this, actually, I actually just kind of got inspired with this whole identity thing. Is so what is identity, and how can we form that outside of needing that romantic relationship, So anyways, if you guys have anything on that would be really good to just hear from relationship coaches on that identity.
For sure.
No, and one of the things that we do go over with students as well, right, when we talk to them, I think it's that first day as well, with the pyramid. I can't remember exactly, but we tell them that it starts with us, right? We're not supposed to think about these questions or about relationships once we're in the relationship. We encourage them to start doing that prior to the relationship, right? And the whole thing with identity, that can be something very tricky, because we can think that we know ourselves best,
right?
But sometimes we find ourselves, sometimes we find ourselves in situations where like, did I really react that way, or so just I really think it's important to just take some time alone and just ask yourself, or just think about your strengths, your weaknesses, we encourage students to also take personality tests.
That's what I was going to say. Yep.
Those go a long way. They really do.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like a super high-end fancy one, like those free ones you can find online can still help show you some part of yourself as well. And getting to know your identity. And once you get to know that identity, that can go a long way as well in relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe to add on that is, personality test is the first thing you want to do is take a personality test, get to know you, identify your values. What are your values? Yes. What are some of the things that like maybe your parents value that you want to continue to value as you grow older? And do a lot of introspection. Watch different types of shows. What do you like to watch? What makes you feel like you? Because you have inherent value, and there's no one like you, and so you're uniquely you, and you're made for someone that's going to compliment you, right? And so it's important for you to get to know you, and we don't take enough time to do that. And so,
no, I totally agree. That is something that we encourage students, because we talk to thousands and thousands of students, both of us actually. And honestly, that's something that we end on a note of getting to know yourself, but also like that you have value regardless of what's happened to you, regardless. We use the illustration of like a $20 bill, right? If I crumple it, if I throw it away, if I step on it, right? The value is still there because it's still $20. It's still a currency. And you still have your value no matter what experiences you've walked through. And I think that's something that can be hard when you're processing or going through a breakup. It's like, okay, now what do I do? Or what value do I provide to a relationship, honestly? So, no, thank you guys. Those were really good points. And I actually want to transition to the actual conversation. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but what are some good rule of thumb tips for when you're having that conversation with your partner, to not shame or blame them, but how to approach that subject and with respect?
Like breaking up or
the breakup conversation.
Yes. Well, could I?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
So,
you seem excited.
A rule of thumb that I like to use is I call this the sandwich method. I don't know. Do you guys use that, the sandwich method kind of thing? Where
unless I know it by another name,
maybe I call it sandwich just because
I just don't have
just because you throw So what I like to say is, like, if you're approaching someone and you want to break up with them, or you're about to have this conversation, it's very difficult, first of all, I don't want to take all of the little tips away because I know we teach the same thing, so I want to make sure that we leave some room. But I'm gonna just talk about this method here. It's important for you to we call this the sandwich method. Say something nice right off the bat. Hey, thank you for the time we spent. I appreciate you being with me and being loyal to me. Something along those lines, and then say what you really mean in the middle. Hey, you know what? Like, it's not working out. This is the reason why. And then say something nice to end it. I hope that you find the person that compliments you in the future moving forward. Something like that. So something nice, what you want to say, and then end it with something nice. And that gets rid of the
really good illustration. I like that. Yeah.
No, definitely. Thank you for that. And I think that can go for any conversation, really. For a lot of conversations that we have. So I'll definitely remember that method for sure. No, but I do like that a lot, right? Starting with something positive, definitely. Because at the end of the day, this is someone that you spent part of your life with. And like we mentioned, part of our identity was with this person, right? So that's what definitely makes breakups a lot harder. But like we mentioned earlier with our stories, definitely having that conversation in person.
So true.
Not trying to blame or shame the other person either, right? Not saying you always did this, you always did that. Just, being aware, like, instead of saying you statements, more like I felt this way. Not attacking that person either, because we're not trying to end on bad terms. But just being aware of the reasons ahead of time as well can help you engage in that conversation a lot better, instead of trying to figure out what went wrong in the middle of the conversation. Moment. You're prepared ahead of time. Because then it can easily go off into other conversations, other rabbit trails as well, right? And you can start talking about other things, and that can make that breakup a lot more difficult. And even more confusing, where you might not even find that closure at the end because you weren't able to address those things or actually talk about those reasons why. And I really do like how you mentioned, starting with that positive thing and ending positive as well. Because at the end of the day, well, at least I hope for everyone that you do not hate this person.
Yeah.
Right. That you're breaking up with, because that's something that can definitely stick with you in the long run and affect that breakup. So affecting you in your healing process as well. So just I do like how you mentioned, those positive notes at the beginning, at the end, to help us get that closure as well. It goes a long way. Yeah. And not just helping them heal, but also helping us heal and being able to come to terms with the reasons why it came to this.
Yes. No, thank you for pointing those points out, because like, honestly, when it comes to healing and doing the conversation, right, it's awkward, and we don't really want to have that conversation. Yeah. And so I think those are really good tips that are practical and simple, but yet super effective, that we can actually approach and take these into real life.
Absolutely.
And so thank you guys for giving that.
Yeah.
Something I also wanted to touch on briefly, because I know this is something that I've actually watched happen. So when there was a breakup, it was like one of my best friends who broke up, and it was kind of hard because for me, I was the person who was friends on both sides. So friends to the partner and to the person who was in a relationship with them. Oh. And so sometimes that can be really awkward, the whole social fallout, especially if you go to the same school, and you're showing up at classes, or if you're at college and you're in the same, classes or dorms or whatever. It's just, it can be awkward.
Definitely.
And social media as well. So yeah, there are some things that, like, yes, we had the conversation. Yes, we made the decision. And yes, we talked about it in a healthy way. But how do I handle when it comes to mutual friend circles? Like, how do I handle that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a good point, honestly. But I think there's also a conversation that has to be had with the friend group there as well. So, we're not trying to involve them in the breakup, but just letting them know that, hey, like, if you guys are trying to go out and do this or that, just try to plan it in a way where we're not going to be there at the same time.
Yeah. Give us some time to heal.
Yeah. Some time to heal. Maybe they can do something with your ex, and then later on you can do something with the friend group, right? Yeah. But just giving yourself that distance at first, and it has nothing to do with that disrespect or like hating your ex or anything, right?
Right.
It is just more to
healthy
continue
boundaries.
to help you. Healthy boundaries, help you heal, and also to avoid any drama within the friend group, because that can cause a break in the friend group as well if it's not dealt with correctly. But then you also mentioned social media, so another good thing would be, disconnecting from them on social media as well. That can cause a lot of issues for sure. I know social media is always brought up by students as one of those things that makes relationships so much harder today. So a good disconnect from social media can go a long way as well.
For them to, absolutely. Yeah. That's a good point.
Doing like a social media detox, or like having to do a mental detox as well. Like, those are things that are not disrespectful, but it's actually taking care of yourself and helping you actually process the emotional fallout as well as the social fallout as well. And so, thank you for those tips. Is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, so it's funny because usually when this happens, and this is more along the sides like healing in a breakup, people tend to sit in a dark room, watch some sad movies, listen to some sad tunes, especially put a hoodie on. And, recently, because I was coaching the high school girls, one girl was in a breakup, and the advice her friends were giving her is, listen to this song, it's sad. No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to drown in your sadness. It creates more depression. So the last thing you want to do is sit in a room, eat ice cream, watch. You got to get out, get busy, get going, get distracted. And so if you have a friend group that you hang out with, ask them to do something. Let's go hang out, or play a sport, or join a club. Now, if again, the friend group has a common friend that you were dating, you want to make sure that you take preventative steps and say, hey, I'd like to hang out individually with you. I need some time. Ask a family member or friend, but take some time to get distracted, learn more about yourself, grow and your skill set. And I think those are some things that'll get your mind off of the breakup. It's going to be hard, but it's not impossible, right? And so you just got to do some of those things for yourself.
And that's a good point that you brought up, how people will oftentimes watch a sad movie or listen to sad music.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's very normalized as well.
Yeah.
Movies, shows, that's the first thing that pops up when you...
Yeah.
And that's why it's like an instant go-to for us.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
we don't
what I'm
even
saying.
think about it.
Like, let's listen to that sad song. And
Yeah. And then we wonder why, farther on down
Why
the
we
road,
feel
we're
like
still
that.
crying,
Yeah.
we're still in our feels, right? Because we haven't, once again, given ourselves that time.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good pointer.
No, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Bring it up, and I think it's something for us females, like for us girls, like we want the dark chocolate. We want to go through the whole entire emotional process. But I encourage you, like, to take some of these tips and actually be open-minded to reconsidering, reevaluating how you process that breakup, and thinking about the post aftermath, all of that, because the way you process can actually affect the way that you actually go through life and you actually mature, or if you don't mature through that experience. And so I think there's a lot of value in this. And so, yeah, I just encourage you to be open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
So with all of that being wrapped up, I do want to ask the last question. So because of your experiences with breakups, but also being certified relationship coaches in schools, what's some piece of advice? Like, what's one advice that they can take away from this conversation that you would actually like to leave with them at the end of this video?
Yeah.
I think for me, the same thing that we tell students at the end of our presentations also, to have that trusted adult connection, or just someone that you can have a healthy connection with. For times like, especially in breakups, it's important to be able to have someone that you can talk to, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't like to go to therapy or anything like that, or see a counselor, which is understandable, right? But having someone that you can talk to, a friend that you can trust, preferably your parent, I mean, that would be the best thing, I think. But I think having that connection with someone that you can, that respects you, you can respect, that you look up to as well, I think it's extremely important, especially for conversations like these, for breakups, right? They can offer some words of advice as well, and they can help us navigate that pain and kind of come to terms with the reasons why we also had to end that relationship.
That's really, really good. I'm going to second that. I think a trusted adult is essential. My brother-in-law recently, he's 17. He goes to, I'm not going to say his school. He's 17 though, but he recently got him through a breakup. And one of those things is that a trusted adult is going to have the resources, right, to help you navigate, and the experience to help you navigate and guide you through the process of breakup. And one of the things I did was I took him out to eat. I got him distracted. I did everything I teach pretty much. And so it helps out, right? Another thing is it's important for you to know that you are valuable, you're important, you're equal, and you're worthy no matter what's happened to you or no matter what you've done too. Sometimes you're the one that's breaking up and you feel the guilt. And so, it's important for you to understand that you have intrinsic worth, and regardless of anything you've done. And that's my advice to you.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And I think this is advice that we can take because you guys not only are certified relationship coaches, but you went through the experience. And so I think, aren't you guys speaking from like experience? Like, hey, this is something I wish I would have had when I went through my own breakup. I wish I would have had someone who I could have trusted as an adult to actually help me navigate through all of this process with me. Because I think a lot of times we think of trusted adults as being kind of not guides, but like kind of like the overseer, kind of like lording over us. But actually, they're guides that can actually help you navigate through with you, alongside of you. So I encourage you with that advice. I encourage you guys to consider it at least, be open-minded to it. And hopefully we will create more content like this. So if you actually like this content, please leave a comment, drop it below, because we want to personalize this towards you and answer your questions. So with that, I think we're good, and we're gonna just wrap it up. So
happy Valentine's.
Happy Valentine's.
okay.